Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage. We are back working on the Forgotten Hot Rod, the 39 Forgotten Hot Rod, and we are nearing the end of the to-do list to get everything done before springtime. We can actually start putting some miles on the car. So one of the things we did quite a while ago before we put the body on was I basically built the exhaust system or welded up the exhaust system from like at the ram's horn downpipes or manifolds all the way back to just before the rear cross member. We didn't put that on there because we didn't know where, with the body off, where the pipes were going to land. So now that we're finally on the home stretch, I could have those bent up. So I went over to my friends over at J&H Auto that's here in my hometown here, and those guys bent me up some simple exhaust tailpipes. I just brought them some like TIG wire like you saw in one of the other videos that we bent up, and they bent it up the shape, and then I kind of just finagle it from there. Quick, easy way to do it without hanging up their lift, and also we're able to kind of do most of it here ourselves, and saves me having another tool taking up a big space in the garage where a car could be. I'm going to work on getting this mounted up today and see how it sounds with the new tailpipes, and then we'll be pretty close to being done. I'm just waiting on some glass and we'll be pretty darn good. All right, so under here, we were doing the exhaust, I just zip tied it in place just to get it kind of so it wasn't flopping around. We're gonna need to add a hanger somewhere in this area, not quite sure yet where yet, but we'll be needing to add a hanger in here. But I need to cut this because this is kind of keeping me from moving the pipe up and down, so we can get everything kind of centered. So I'm going to cut that, that'll let that drop, and now we can start moving this up and down and using my other piece to see if we can get everything kind of going in the right direction. Alright, so what we're trying to do is get this tailpipe to come out centered or a little higher up than center, hard to say exactly where it's going to land. Coming out that rear bumper mount. So I'm going to have to slip this piece on here. Alright, so I got the first tailpipe fitted, and one thing I didn't think about is that rear cross member that goes across the frame in the back, or rear tie-in bar, or whatever you want to call it, is right in line with where our bend was, and because I was using TIG wire, I wanted it to sit a tiny bit higher, but really it's not too bad. It's kind of centered in the slot there, and I was thinking about getting it way up into the top of here, but I don't think it's too horrible. I'm trying not to be too critical on this car because it's just supposed to be a kind of throw together car, so to speak. And I have the tailpipe obviously is way too long, but I want to get the other pipe in, get it set, and then kind of get both of them sort of level before we like clamp or weld anything, and then we can kind of make a decision where we're going to chop it off. But obviously this is way too long here. We got like 12 inches or something sticking out of the end there. So I got that side in. I'm going to kind of probably clamp it in place with some vice grips and stuff just to get it so it holds its position, and then I'm going to move over to the other side, get that fit up, and then we'll try and get everything looking good before we decide where we're going to lock those tailpipes off. But at least we got something to the back of the car. All right, so I got both the tailpipes all mounted up, got them kind of clamped up in place, and they're about where they need to be. But I needed to set the car down on the ground just to make sure that they're kind of looking like they're straight from behind the car. I did end up having to put 2 little pie cuts in this one to take a little bit of the bend out of the pipe. Probably when I made my little form, it wasn't 100% accurate. Harry made a nice bend for me at J&H, and he pretty much mimicked exactly what I had, but of course my little wire form could have been off a little bit. Just one of those things, but I can take up those 2 little pie cuts. Won't be an issue at all, and you won't really see it because it's on the top of the pipe anyways. So one thing to mention as you're trying to get pipes like this or anything on these early cars centered or level, or just the look of them when they're sitting on the ground, all these early Fords, even this car that's 39, basically all the way up to 48, they still use the buggy type suspension like a Model T would have, where it has the spring in the rear is just a single spring pack that goes across the back of the car and across the front. What that does is it gives it some rock like this, that the car can sit just a little bit unlevel, or depending on how the car settles when you let it off of a jack or off a lift, it may favor to one side just a little bit. This car I haven't put shocks on, tube shocks on yet, so this thing really has an exaggeration of how it rocks back and forth. So when I set this thing down, I want to first, before we're measuring our tailpipe height to make sure that they're level to each other, we want to measure the car itself or the bottom of the fenders, just find it kind of a common place and measure. So when I measured on this car, on this side here, I'm about at 11 inches at the bottom of the fender. And you go on this side, and I'm almost exactly 12 inches to the bottom of the fender on this side. So what that's telling me is the car's sitting a little crooked. When you're building these cars, even if you're building the nicest show car there is, these cars tend to settle and sit like that. And a lot of times you'll have to kind of play with them to get them to kind of settle in. The Free T, we had a hell of a time getting that thing. It was driving me crazy when we were doing the headlights because the car wasn't sitting quite right. We're trying to get the headlights to jive and everything going on with the front end. It kept looking like the headlights were sitting funny, even though when we were doing all our measurements, everything lined up. Well, it ended up being that the car, because it didn't settle, was sitting a little funny. And even though I've been doing this on a bunch of these cars, I still sometimes forget. So what we need to do, it's super simple, is because this is 12 and that's 11, we need to go up on that side and down on that side a little bit. So simply just kind of rock the car in that direction and get it sitting. All right, so we need to go, we got about a ½ an inch just by doing that. There we go. Yep, right at 11¾ basically on both sides. So now I have the fenders pretty much sitting level, and I know the body's pretty much level. For this junker, it should be just fine. Now what I can do is measure my tailpipes to the bottom of them and make sure that one's not sitting like an inch lower or something real crazy, and we can get them kind of leveled up. They should be pretty close because I basically have both of them almost touching the cross member or the rear hoop in the frame, so they both should be pretty darn close, but I just want to double check because I did modify this bend a little bit to get it to kind of level out. So once I check all that, we should be able to clamp it all in place, kind of make some marks in the pipes, then we can start clamping and welding and put some hangers for the tailpipes, and we should be good to go. Real close. We're going to be going live for a Sunday service on December 20th, the Sunday before Christmas. We're going to do a Sunday service live, and we're going to do a Q&A like we always do, give some updates on projects, and then we're going to announce the top 3 winners from the comments. So if you're able to, definitely watch that video live, or if you can't, watch the recorded version, because if you were picked, you definitely want to watch the video. If we do pick you and you don't get back to us within like a week, we're going to then pick the next person down below. We'll have some backups for that. All right, so I got this pipe pretty much all set up. We painted it and everything. Got the little pie cuts I did all welded up. And what I did in that last shot was welding on a little bracket. I decided to add a little hanger. Instead of adding some kind of like universal hanger here, I thought it'd be better to add something a little more secure and also a little more compact. So I just bent some 1/8" steel, just threw a couple little TIG welds on it. And what that did is I drilled a hole up in here, and I'm going to be running a bolt with a couple of little rubber like insulators. So I've used them before in some of the exhaust kit systems that I bought in previous life that I used, where they had some exhaust hangers where they basically sandwiched like a piece of rubber in there. And what that does is it gives it a little bit of room for vibration and flex on the exhaust system. So I'm going to basically simulate that. I got a little bushing here from my universal bushing bin that my buddy Pete always gives me stuff when he's cleaning out his shop, and I got a bunch of them. So I split a little bushing in half. I'm going to put one bushing on the front of this bracket and then one on the back with the bolt and a washer on either side, of course. And that should get it so that it'll be hanging really nice, and then also it will give it a little bit of flex. So I'm going to try and get this piece all up in here. If I did everything correct, it should fit up pretty good. Just got to get a mallet just to tap this, drive it into its home. All right. Ah!
What I wanted to do.
Danger.
Right. I don't need accident insurance. Wham! Right in the eye.
Never coming off.
Not without a fight. Yeah, that should be good. If not, we can always tighten them more.
All right, so we got the exhaust all buttoned up, got the car down, and everything's nice and tight. And we're gonna start this thing up again. We just started it just to warm it up a little bit, make sure that it actually started. But we're gonna start off, let you guys hear it at idle, and I think it sounds pretty good. So we have full exhaust to the back of the car finally, and we won't die when we're sitting in the car letting it run and idle. So really psyched that the exhaust is all done on this thing. Another thing checked off the list. We had to move a little bit of wiring back on the rear cross member section because the exhaust was kind of butting up against it. Justin was able to kind of take the clips and just flip them on the inside. Everything worked out really great. As you can hear, there's no like crazy rattles or weird sounds with the exhaust even when we're revving it up. And yeah, so I would say mission accomplished. So next couple things we got to do on the car is we got to just button up the last little things in the engine bay. I got to find an air cleaner for this. I've been a cheap ass and have passed on a bunch of chrome T-Bird air cleaners. And now I need one, and I'm gonna have to pay through the nose because I was too cheap when I was in like Oregon, and there was a guy with like a stack of them like this. and I think he told me like $100 for one, and I was like, I don't know. And now it's like I can't even touch one for under 200, of course. But anyways, we got to get some little stuff like that all buttoned up. When we just started this thing now, Justin and I realized that this was the first time we started it since he did the hooking up the oil gauges and the coolant temp gauge and all that stuff. So all of that worked, no major leaks. Everything is good there. And yeah, so really psyched. The car's a lot closer. I finally just got my glass like the day before this we were shooting this video. So next video, we're gonna work on finally getting all the glass put in this car, and then we're ready to take a test drive. I cannot wait. So here real soon, we'll be driving this thing around, maybe even sliding around in my yard in the snow, depending on the weather. So thank you guys for following along, appreciate it. Catch you later.